Hi, and welcome to Dittmer Knittery. My name is Bev, and you can find more information and contact information in the description box below, where you'll also find links to some things that I refer to in the video. Whether you are a returning viewer, hello, so good to see you, or a new viewer, hi, thank you for tuning in. I'm really happy that you're here today. I hope you'll comment or send an email, stay connected somehow. And I really appreciate each and every one of you. And I know there's some of you who stay connected by watching and you prefer not to comment or email. And I appreciate you just as much as I appreciate every single one of you who watch. It means a lot to me that you tune in. Today, I'm just going to catch up on what I'm making. I thought I'll make a few short videos showing some details of what I'm doing. Well, those videos didn't turn out to be very short, so I'm going to keep this introduction pretty short. I have been experimenting and playing, and this is a time of year when I usually get to do that because the last few years have been a cycle of having a large event in the fall where I'm scrambling in the summer and the fall to make for, and then once that's over, I take a deep breath and I try to investigate those skills that I want to get better at. I try to take time to do what I'm inspired to do, exactly what I'm inspired to do, and I think I touched on this in my last video, that I have a lot of success when I let myself do whatever I feel like doing artistically. So I do have some videos for you showing my work. I like doing these videos like this because I think it's a good way to show you some more detail. And I wanted to start today by just checking in again and showing you some of the equipment and materials I use because it's not much. I don't use very many things. It's easy to get started and play and experiment at this or a lot of other fiber crafts and arts you could try. So the things I'm going to show you today that I've been working on, I have used these pieces of store-bought felt. And I will link to this FeltWorks and also this LivingFelt website that I'll talk about. And this is 100% wool. And it's just a square of felt. It looks a lot like the acrylic felt that you would buy for crafting, but it's 100% wool. And I just wanted you to see how it comes in about a 12 by 12 square. It's actually a little bit bigger than 12 by 12 most of the time. And so I have cut up this one into some squares, and I cut up a blue one too, and I'll show you in a minute what I've been doing with them. And then the felting needles I use, I have this variety of felting needles, everything from very fine to very coarse to needles that even will remove the fibers. But you don't need all that to get started. This is a tool I got at Hobby Lobby, and it was marked down. I'm sure I only paid $5 for it. And even at full price, it's $9.99. This is a different brand with the same kind of tool, and it is a needle felting tool that holds multiple needles. Maybe you can see it a little bit better if I do that. It holds multiple needles, but you can easily use just one needle. It's easy to take it apart, remove some or all of, remove two or one of the needles. If you were to break one, that's how you replace it, is it just opens up. And you can take those needles out and replace them. Of course, it's very sharp. It's not a craft for young children. So do take great care. It is very sharp. But these are inexpensive tools that you can get started with. This is another multi-needle tool. This one has 5 needles in it. And all of these, you can buy replacement needles. They're not expensive. And you can get the fine, medium, and coarse needles, which is really all you need to get started. And honestly, when I'm doing my work, I generally use the fine needles for probably 80% of the work I do. I'm using the fine needles, and then I might use some of the coarser needles to add some details, because what the coarser needles do is they might even create texture and holes in what you're doing, where the fine needles are going to create a finer, smoother surface, which is usually what I'm going for. And I just have gravitated to those fine needles, and I actually recently started using more of the coarser needles just because I have them and I wanted to experiment and I wanted to see what they do. And I mentioned this FeltWorks is a website where you can purchase this felt squares that you can cut up and work on. Also, LivingFelt is a place where I get a lot of my supplies. I like their needles because they have such a variety, and you can buy a variety of pack, or you can buy one card of needles, which is 3 needles, and it comes with this explanation of what every color-coded needle is, from fine to very coarse. So I get a lot of questions about materials and equipment. Those are really, really good questions, and I just encourage you to experiment with whatever it is that makes you happy, and whatever it is you feel like doing. There's not a right way to do arts and crafts. There's not a wrong way, I should say. There's not a wrong way. There's not one right way, and there's no wrong way. Do what makes you happy. And that's when I have the most success with my art and craft, is when I do exactly what I wanted to do. And now I have some things that I've been working on that I'd like to show you. Again, these are pieces of this felted fabric that comes in squares that I have done needle felting on that square. This is a square I cut in half, obviously. And I put this needle felting on it. All of this, almost all of this, is needle felting on wool with yarn. The exception is this looks like this is batting and not yarn. And this looks like this is batting. I'm sure it is. I used batting to make those animals look furry. But the rest of this is all done with yarn. It can all be done completely with yarn. So like I said, almost all of this was done with yarn, with the exception of these fuzzy looking pieces here where I used batting. This is batting. This, again, is unspun wool, raw wool, which has been dyed, obviously, but it's very short fibers. You can pinch off the tiniest piece of that, and that's what I mean by short fibers. It's easy to get just a tiny piece off of it, whereas if you had something that had longer fibers, such as this, it's not so easy to snatch off a tiny piece. You can't hold it by the corner and get a piece off of it, because this is a long fiber and you have to get it more like that. And then this fiber is so fine that it's hard for the needle to catch it. Very difficult for the needle to catch it and drive it into this piece of wool. Not impossible. And of course there's uses for that. But when I talk about the batting that I use, it's this kind of fiber that's short, crimpy fiber that it's easy to use a needle to apply it to this felt backing. I hope that helps a little. I've talked about the different fibers before, and I'll talk about them again. I'm really trying to make my videos less scripted, so I'm not always sure what I'm going to say, and I kind of felt like I needed to give you the explanation of what that batting was, and I hadn't really planned for that. And here are some more things that I've made from these felt squares, where I just took the piece of felt, cut it up with a pair of scissors, and I did some needle felting on it. I really like making bees. I want to get better and better and better at making bees. I've always liked making peace signs. And one time I created a panel like this out of a whole square, and it had a bee and the word peace, and it had an at sign. So the piece was called Be at Peace. Well, I was going to maybe create something like that again, and then I realized if I just put these two pieces together, what I have is Be Peace. What a great message. What could I add to that? Be Peace. So I'm going to put these two together like this, and they kind of want to stick together, so I'm not going to actually sew them together, other than I will probably put some yarn in a couple of places through the top here to make a string to hang it. So you could hang it wherever you wanted to, and you could be peace. And I just really like that idea of something small that I can make easily, and it's a great way for me to experiment with making something a little bit fuzzier, a little bit more 3D. I mentioned before that I would like to do that. I haven't stopped making bags, and I'm not going to stop making bags, but when you put something like this on a bag, I have to spend a lot more time making sure that these fibers are securely attached, because a bag is going to be worn and carried. This piece will get not much wear at all. It's just a display piece. It's decor. And it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. This 3D texture can remain and be a part of the art itself. Here's another piece using the same idea. This one is Be Love. I really enjoyed making these bees, and this is the first one I did yesterday. I did both of these yesterday, and I think this one turned out even better. This was the first one. This was the second one. I think the second one turned out even better than the first one. Now this next piece I'm going to show you is way out there for experimentation. This is not anything I've ever done before at all. I did start with a piece of felt, and I started with some needle felting. I put some faces on actually old purse that didn't turn out well at all, and I've cut it up and used the piece of felt to just really, this is experimentation and play. And again, I encourage you to, whatever craft it is that you enjoy, however you feel artistic or however you feel crafty, do it. I have had so much fun with this. I can't even tell you how much fun this was. So I started with the idea that I would use this old piece of felt from a bag. You can see it even had a closure on it, the bag did. But it didn't turn out at all, and I won't go into that, what happened to the poor bag. And I thought I would just needle felt some people on it, because I really have been wanting to depict people. I've gotten better at depicting animals, and part of it is the realization that it doesn't have to be perfect. I don't have to make them look like real people with the details of their faces and eyes and mouths for people to understand that these are people, and for us to enjoy how they're depicted here. And I had a great time doing this. So I got their faces done, and then I thought, I really wanted to try putting some fabric on there and see what it would look like to give them some fabric clothes. So I went to my fabric stash. I chose a few pieces of fabric, and I made clothing for my little people. And I literally just took the fabric and took my pencil, and I drew on the wrong side of the fabric what I kind of wanted to make, and then I cut it out with the scissors, and then I maybe shaped it a little bit more with the scissors to get it the right length, and to get it the way I wanted it to look. Had to try a couple of times to get this plaid right there where I wanted it. And then all along I had intended to put a dog in there, and so I was experimenting with making a dog on another piece of this poor cut up purse. There's a piece of what remains of what used to be a failed project. I just cut it up and used the pieces of felt. There's where it had a snap on it. A long time ago. Glad I kept that failed project. Anyway, I was making the dog on a piece like this just to experiment. And I really liked it. So I just took my scissors and I cut the dog and all out of that piece of fabric and I set it on there. And one of the joys of this is that these things just stick to the felt. And I'll show you that in a minute. I'll pick it up and show it to you and show how the clothing and the dog sticks to the piece of felt. Now, it's not permanent, but it works well enough to experiment, to take it off, and people could change their clothes if they wanted to. If I decided that person wanted to wear that outfit and this person wanted to wear this outfit, or if this person would like to wear the dress, and this person would like to wear the pants and the top. And I think if I wanted to put this on here permanently, that I would use fabric glue or Velcro or something like that, something really easy to apply those things to that felt backing. The reason I have my camera set up a little bit differently is I was hoping that you could see my hands better while I work, because I'm going to show you just a little bit of needle felting. But first, I said I would show you that when I pick up this piece, these pieces of fabric in the dog will actually stick to the wool. And like I said, that it's not permanent, but it's really fun to be able to stick it to it and hold it up and see what your work is going to look like. Isn't that cute? It's so cute to me. This is so much fun. Fun and experimentation. How else could you describe that? As I mentioned, I'm going to create at least one more bee, something like this. And because I've created one before, created a couple of them before, I have an idea of the size and shape and where I want to place it on here. So I've started to, what I call, sketch this in. And I'm using a fine felting needle and just sketching that in. And one of the things that happens is as you push this yarn in, it uses up a little bit of the yarn. So I allow some long ends. And again, what's happening, what I mean is as I press down in there, some of that yarn is going down into the felted wool fabric. And it's using up this length of yarn a little bit. So allow a little extra yarn for your length. Like I said, I have a nice long length of yarn over here. So I didn't run out, so it didn't cut me short right there. And then I wanted to also show you that I call this sketching because you can do quite a lot. You can start to create the bee trail over here. You could start to create those black stripes just by pushing some of that yarn into the wool. But if you thought, gosh, that really isn't the size and shape. It's not in the right place. I don't have room for a stinger over here. His head's not going to fit over here. I really don't like that. That's how easily it comes out at that point. And that's why I continue to tell you to experiment. Not to wonder what will happen, but to do it, to try it. So I'm going to start again. And this bee shape I've learned is not round, not exactly oval. It's kind of the shape of a lemon or an egg or a fish, however that looks to you. And the yarn is generally quite cooperative. It wants to stick to this piece of felt, just like the pieces of fabric and other wool want to stick to that piece of felt. So it's easy to do a little layout and a sketch and see how when I press on that part of the wool, it pulls on that part of the yarn, it pulls this. So that's what I was meaning about giving yourself some extra length. And just sketching that in place in the shape of my bee body. Easy to get started. And again, I have this attached to a ball of yarn. This is 100% wool yarn. This happens to be Knit Picks palette yarn in black. I have my other colors here. Something like this. This is so simple. It calls for only 3 colors. And of course, you could add more colors. You could use different colors. But that's one thing I like about creating the bees is that they're simple, they're easy to create. I love them. My name starts with a B, so I really like bees. They're beneficial to, of course, our environment. They are vital to our environment. And gosh, I could just go on and on about why I like bees and why I make bees, why I decided to make that part of my work. And I am making these small pieces because I hope to be in a festival in the spring. It's called the Festival on Ponce, and it's actually in Atlanta. This will be my first Atlanta show if I get in. It is a juried show. I have to apply. But I'm hoping to create some small pieces because I don't have a lot of time to create a lot of larger pieces. To make the bee trail, I just sketched this in, made a loop where I want the trail to be, and then after I had needle felted it pretty well in place, I cut the yarn in a few places. So I didn't use small pieces of yarn to do this. I used one continuous piece of yarn and then I cut it. I've actually tried it both ways, using small pieces and then also doing it in one continuous. I like doing the continuous yarn because then it's easy to shape that trail. It looks continuous, whereas if you use little pieces of yarn, your bee trail might get crooked and not look so continuous. So that's how I created the trail. And then a stinger, or this first small stripe. And the yarn is going to adhere, is going to needle felt into the background piece wherever you poke that needle in. So if you just stay in this outline that you've created, and I have found that the outline is very helpful. And again, because it's so easy to remove that part, if you didn't want the outline to remain, you could take it off. You could use the outline as a guide and fill in whatever space you were trying to create and actually remove that outline. But I found the outline looks really nice. It creates a sharpness to the piece, as the outline does in a lot of fiber art. You include an outline. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of how then this yellow stripe will go in. Same way as the black stripe. And this again is palette Knit Picks yarn. By no means is this meant to be perfect or precise. Experimentation and play. I mean it. And then, so if I was finished with this stripe, cut that yarn, and then I could go ahead and my intention was to make a short video showing you some of the things I've been working on. But apparently my videos got rather long because my camera just got hot and shut off. Just right when I was beginning to show you, I think, adding the shape for the head. And I would cut away that piece right there of yarn, or you could cover it with the yellow yarn, but I would cut it away. Anyway, that gives you an idea of the process, and I hope that I'll have an opportunity to show you more of this, and that I'll be doing more of this, and maybe even including some other materials and other ideas. I mentioned the festival on Ponce, which is a fairly large festival in Atlanta. It will be my first Atlanta show. And so I have about 35 to 40 products, bags and hats, and felted panels or banners that are ready to go. And so if I can make 10 or 12 more pieces, even if they're small pieces, that will put me in the range of having a little over 50 products to put out in my booth. Now, to prepare, I have to do things like buy a tent, do a practice booth setup, which is really important. I've done that halfway kind of before, and I've discovered that it's probably important and would be to my advantage to go ahead and try to really do a thorough booth setup, especially if I go ahead and buy the tent. So I have to apply for the show. If I get accepted, that's probably when I will invest in a festival event tent. I have not given up or lost interest in knitting and crochet and yarn and other fiber crafts and arts. But this is a time of year, like I said, when I get to experiment, and I hope you enjoyed seeing what I have been doing. Again, you will find links to the festival and to the products I mentioned in the description box below. I hope that you'll tune in for the next video. Thanks for watching. Take care now.